After more than a decade representing much of Dorchester and parts of South Boston and the South End, Boston City Councilor Frank Baker is stepping down at the end of this term. On November 7th, John FitzGerald and Joel Richards will go head-to-head for his 3rd District seat. That's after early voting, of course. Joel Richards' opponent for the Boston City Council's 3rd District seat, John FitzGerald, has worked for the City of Boston for the last 17 years, including a stint as the Director of Finance for the Office of Economic Development. He's now Deputy Director of Real Estate Operations for the Boston Planning and Development Agency. And he joins me now. John FitzGerald, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So you're running to replace Frank Baker, who I think of as one of the more staunchly conservative voices on the council. You're running with his backing, and backing of other people, including former Mayor Marty Walsh. Yep. How do you describe yourself ideologically?
Well, honestly, I prefer to stay away from all ideological forms. But when I was out knocking doors, a lot of people would say, well, are you like Frank? You know, do you align with Frank?
That's what I was trying to ask.
Yeah, and depending on where you are in the neighborhood, someone to hear yes, someone to hear no. And my response was always, look, nobody's Frank, right? Frank is his own person. Going into that, I have a very different, we share some set of values, right? And I think that I'm going to go in there and be my own person. I have a little bit different characteristics, a little bit different temperament than Councilor Baker probably had. But there are some core things there that sure will stick, whether you want to call them conservative or progressive. I plan on bringing common sense.
Can you give me a couple examples? You mentioned there are core things that are going to stick, whether it is something you think of as conservative, progressive, something else. Give me one or two.
Sure. You know, I support our public safety officials, our police, our fire, right, EMTs. I think we should be doing more to support them, and because they're going to be needed in the future. And so we may have to make sure that they're trained appropriately, recruited appropriately, and they're the best in the nation now, but there's no reason that we can't get better.
Okay. You are, as we mentioned, the Deputy Director of Real Estate Operations at the BPDA. Mayor Wu, who's been looking to, first she was going to abolish it, now she's trying to reform it. She has said she wants it to focus, the BPDA, where you work, on resilience, affordability, and equity. Those are her 3 lodestones, touchstones. Is that the right vision, do you think?
Sure. No, I think those are all admirable goals. And as the Economic Development Agency for really the entire New England region, I think that is a worthwhile cause. I kind of stray away because I'm still currently working at the BPDA. So I tend to sort of plead the fifth on those for now, because if I do not win this race and I have to go back to work, right, I still have to provide for my family.
Makes it a little tricky.
So I sort of, I apologize, but I sort of just say, no comment on any BPDA related.
Okay, but broadly speaking, those priorities that she's outlined.
Sure, it's great. And I think we can do them. And I don't necessarily think that the city, the BPDA has to be reformed or abolished in any way, but we can certainly work towards those goals with the tools we have now.
If you're elected, what's the first piece of legislation you're going to file?
So I've gotten this question a lot, and I say really it's a very selfish response. And it's that I would like to take all of Dorchester youth sports as a father of 3, a 6-year-old, 4-year-old, and 2-year-old, right? And when you're making the schedule for every upcoming sports season, and the sign-ups are at different times, and the fields are different, and you don't know when practices are yet, but you have to pay the dues and then all of a sudden the kid doesn't want to play soccer, but lacrosse is at the same time. Right. I would love to get all of Dorchester youth sports together, align it under one website where it can be streamlined into focusing, where you really can just have very intuitively pick where you want, and you know you can make your schedule, because half the time with the amount of kids sports that go on, just going through that experience, I'd love to streamline it.
It is an intense experience. It can be an intense experience. I want to ask you about a couple of recent council votes. The council just voted to, or backed, changing the name of Faneuil Hall. That doesn't mean the name has changed. Other stuff would need to happen. How would you have voted?
So I think I would have voted in that if the vote was to, should we take up a committee to study the name change, right? Sure.
Should we have a hearing? And now, but they've said, I mean, it's a vote saying we think it should be changed.
Yeah, and I'm not sure that the city has the power to actually change the name itself, right? But I think if we want to look at who Mr. Faneuil was and what he did, and sort of who we're naming things after, you know, we're not looking to rewrite history here, right? There are things that folks are ashamed of, and that shouldn't have happened, but it was a way of life back then. So you don't want to discourage or rewrite it, but at the same time, we have to look at who we're naming these things after. So a committee to study it, sure, we can take that step.
But just to push it a little more, what they essentially said, I mean, it ended up becoming a vote. They aren't holding a hearing. It was just a vote on should we change the name. And 10 councilors said we should change it.
Yeah.
3 said we shouldn't. Where would you have been?
So I'd have to say, honestly, Faneuil Hall is not what it used to be, and it could be rebranded in itself anyway, and so I think that's a pretty good start.
Okay. So that's you would have voted with the 10.
Sure.
Okay. Also, the council just okayed Mayor Wu's plan to sweep tents at Mass and Cass. Is that the right way to go?
It's the first. It's a good step in the right direction, right? Is it the silver bullet solution? No. There's still a long way to go, and there's still a lot of things we have to do. But it is the first thing in the ordinances that are currently on the books, as well as in addition to the ordinance that was voted on Wednesday. It's a step in the right direction, but we need a lot more work to do.
Governor Healy, as you know, when she unveiled her great big housing plan, she wants to make it easier for municipalities, including Boston, to tax high-end real estate to create affordable housing, transfer tax.
Yeah.
Is that a good idea for Boston?
It depends what the threshold is. I think with the cost of homes topping $1 million more often than not, the more families that are living here now to have to take on that tax when they're trying to build generational wealth, right, for their families and for their kids. I think million almost includes too many people, and that's through no fault of the people that bought that house at whatever time they bought their house and the cost it was then, right? But, you don't want to hurt anyone from making a positive investment, whether it was 5 years ago or 50 years ago. So it depends what the threshold is, but I think $1 million right now might be too low and actually include too many people.
Do you have a sense for the city of what a more appropriate threshold would be? $1.5 million, $2 million?
Yeah, sure. Haven't studied the numbers as much, but I would say probably $2 million.
Okay.
Right.
Last question for you. We got about 50 seconds left.
Yeah.
You're getting enthusiastic backing from former Mayor Marty Walsh. Just how closely is he working with you and offering guidance and assistance as you seek this job?
No, so he's offered to say, hey, you call me when you need me, right? And I've tried not to bother him. He's a busy man, right? Former Secretary of U.S. Labor, now NHLPA president. So I say, you know what, that guy's probably got enough going on. I don't have to bother him with a city council race in Boston. But, he's always been there to provide good support, good moral support.
I should mention he and your father were close. Yeah,
they shared an office together at the State House for some time, sort of when Marty first came in to the House of Representatives and my father was there, yes. So that's sort of how the bond started, and he's looked after me in a way that I really appreciate, as he's done for countless people in the city of Boston. So.
All right. John FitzGerald, we got to leave it there. Good to meet you, and good luck down the home stretch on the trail.
No, appreciate it. Thank you, Adam.